This is just bits and pieces really from Free for All, which the draft is some 20,000 words. Catherine McGowan said about Free for All, "I think this episode is very iconic. I think he gets to say so much in this episode, it's quite prolific." Rachel Herbert, who played the maid, number 58, that turned out to be number 2, was interviewed at our convention in 2010, and something that she said was, he hoped that people everywhere would pick up on it and create a network of like-minded people. Well, I guess you could say that 6 of 1 has tried to do that. Alright, now Free for All, bear in mind, as I've said, he was writing this at the same time that Mark Stein and Tomlin were writing Arrival. And this is an incredibly complex and concentrated episode. There is just so much in it. It is the purest, the nearest we will ever get to the truly authentic vision that the man had in his mind. So, you've got to say, right at the beginning, we're going off into the allegorical direction that Mark Stein said that he didn't like. And David Tomlin said, talking about McGowan, he said, it was oblique, because Patrick is an oblique person. Anyway, Free for All is a dazzling cascade of fast-moving scenes that comment on electioneering, political commentary, dubious practices of the media, the temptation and illusory nature of power, aspects of brainwashing, mind-bending, identity crisis, privacy. There's a swipe at the civil service. There's the notion of clones, and of course there's even idol worship, the enigmatic, puzzling rover worship scene. And it's that I want to talk about really, because I've never seen anywhere or heard anybody talk about that final scene, the worship cave. So this is it. Now we're going to go with the end scenes, where he and number 58 are, he's won the right to run the village, he's in number 2's living quarters, the organ as it's called is there, and he starts pressing all the buttons, and as number 58 keeps slapping him, he suddenly awakens from his drug state and becomes fully alert, and he explodes into action, frantically pushing buttons and shouting into the phones. "This is our chance, take it now. I have command, listen to me." And he goes on and on, driving and driving, word piling and crashing into each other. You're free to go. And of course what we see is behind him the appearance of 2 of the village guardians. And initial to what he's saying else, he says, "You're free to go. I'm in command, obey me and be free." Now, isn't that interesting? Obey me and be free. Why should he say that? Is it because he's so desperate, knowing he has bare split seconds to inspire his fellow prisoners to action and rebel, he resorts to very extreme measures? Perhaps he believes that because of their apathy, their reflex to obey orders is the only thing that will jog them from their drug-induced stupor. Or is he throwing down the gauntlet to the viewer, us, asking us, if you were in this position, what would you do? Would the end justify the means? Anyway, that's a conundrum, but clearly the line is very deliberate. When he's cut off and is pulled from the microphone, he fights, breaks free, he dashes for the door through which in the script, the men would have entered and it leads into a rock passageway. By the by, I have worked out that because we don't see the whole room of number 2's living quarters, that there are other doorways as well, but we only see them in free-for-all and one other time. So, script specifies, number 6 hurtles into the cave and stops dead. Scene 173. In the centre, Rover immobile. 4 men in mechanics uniform wearing sunglasses. Why sunglasses? Perhaps at close quarters, the naked eye cannot tolerate the concentrated power of Rover. A door clangs shut behind him, and the men advance. He fights and is subdued. They hold him and pummel him methodically and efficiently. If number 6 raising his fist in the air and vehemently declaiming, "I'm not a number, I'm a free man," is memorable as expressing the essence of the series, if number 6 and Peter Pan on the beach at twilight talking of 2 worlds is the most haunting, then the Rover cave scene is the most surreal, perplexing, bizarre, extreme, and poses one of the major questions, not just in the scope of the series, but to the wider world. For those who believe The Prisoner began as a reasonably conventional offbeat spy series with Big Brother overtones, which veered off into allegory, this will explode that. Okay, so this is the scene where it's the nearest we get to learning more about Rover until its demise in Fallout. Certainly, it's the appearance of Rover worship. All sentient beings require sustenance. Perhaps Rover is feeding on the mental energy of the worshippers. Perhaps Rover is programming acolytes, communing with them. Perhaps Rover represents power. Perhaps it's the ambitious party faithful worshipping that power and the forces that oppress. Perhaps Rover is an aspect of number 1. Maybe it's symbolic of that dark side that lurks within us all. It's certainly curious. It symbolises our fear of the unknown. McGowan has played on this. He wishes the audience to be puzzled and have to decide for themselves what Rover is. Addressing Rover's behaviour, remember in Arrival when Rover first appeared, the instruction was to be still. One resident panicked. Perhaps his fear acted as a magnet, drawing Rover's attention. This rationale may have its origin in the Christian faith, where the custom to wear black as a mark of respect at funerals is rooted in fear. In more superstitious times, there was the belief that the deceased would look for a host rather than depart. Thus, the object of mourners was to be as inconspicuous as possible, so the soul would fasten onto another fellow mourner, perhaps one wearing a colour far more attractive. Well, it is a remarkably bleak and dispiriting ending to what has been a fast-moving, tightly edited roller coaster, one where initial hope and optimism has descended into a well-planned and executed comprehensive defeat for the prisoner. This is to teach him a lesson. And I think I'd like to just read to you part of what Rachel said as part of her interview. She said, "I didn't think of it as a propaganda-oriented series. Patrick was quite sincere about it. I remember one lunchtime, after a few drinks at the studio, he was talking about how he hoped that the audience realised and appreciated the concept of the show, that is, to express what you believed and to question authority and its values and beliefs. That being a free man concept would translate into that, and further, that he hoped people everywhere would pick up on it and create a network of like-minded people. I can't remember if he intended it to be more formalised or not, but he was obviously not writing The Prisoner for fun. But he didn't voice any one particular suspicions about the government or whatever. He just wanted to create a general feeling that we should be more aware and to be independently minded about issues and not just go along with what particular spin the authorities and the media put on things. Patrick's sincerity had something to do with the fact it has longevity, I'm sure. Yes, remember, this was the episode that was there right at the beginning and had been in his mind, and it crystallised. So, a couple of points to ponder to conclude. Towards freedom. Reflect what this episode says to you. Is it proposing a course of action? If so, how? Politics is recognised as one avenue to bring about change, to move the world toward that which you might view as a better. Is it effective? Can you think of other ways? Number 2, electioneering. McGowan might seem to be implying that whoever is elected, the strings are manipulated elsewhere. Do you think this is true? As an example of this school of thought, watch an episode of Yes Minister. It's worth saying that the Yes Minister and Yes Prime Minister series with Nigel Hawthorne and McGowan's great friend Paul Eddington was based on fact. It didn't come out of nowhere. There was a politician called Richard Crossman in the 1960s who wrote diaries that were published after his death. And so the seeds were sown there. And then as it was being written, political insiders and MPs and others would leak further information for them. So just about every episode has drawn from truth somewhere. You can buy the DVD of Yes Minister and Yes Prime Minister. I highly recommend them. They're still current. Well, if you want to think about how to change the world for the better, consider the lives of people like Nelson Mandela, William Wilberforce, Martin Luther. There's an endless list of individuals who have stood up. And normally what happens for those who do bring about changes, there are 3 things that happen. First, the individual is ridiculed. Oh no, first they're ignored, then they're ridiculed, then they're oppressed and they're attacked. And that's the traditional way. And then society turns round and says, well, we thought that right all along. And that has happened with so many individuals who have brought about great change. And in conclusion, I hope you enjoy the virtual convention and everything that there is on offer, and keep the faith. Be seeing you.